Hello, Facebook family. We're back live once again, Retired Voices of Reason. We've been on a 2-week hiatus due to technical difficulties, but we're back and we got a lot of new topics along with a new guest. Okay, so we're going to do our round the table introduction. I'm Sam K. Jackson, along with Smokey, D Money Garrett, and Law L.J. Johnson, and our newest contributor to the conversation is going to be Calavito D. Terry, longtime friend, a real positive and knowledgeable guy that brings a little bit of knowledge and insight to the show. So we want everybody to welcome him to today's show, and hopefully he'll be a continuous co-host with us. So you want to introduce yourself, Calavito, and get our Facebook audience a little bit of background?
All right. Calavito Terry is the name. I go by Vito Terry. Everybody on this panel I've known for more than 30 years now. Like they did, I served the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and I did so for 27 years prior to my retirement from there. I am actively still law enforcement. Been in Clay County now for almost 3 years. I'm here because I love what they do. I want to be a part of what's going on. I want to be a part of positive change, and I want to do my part for my people.
All right. Richard G, you got anything for us today? You normally start us off with some knowledge. We're gonna feed our minds. So you got anything for us today?
Well, I'm gonna save mine to the end. I'm gonna save it to the end.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump right in with some of the things that's been going on for the last 2 weeks that we've been absent. And there's been a lot of incidents that has occurred. Probably the one that is most recent is the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office officers that were caught on video after a traffic stop of a African American couple with their kids in the vehicle, stopped on a traffic stop. Apparently, the female was the driver, and it was a African American passenger. What prompted the incident was they asked the male driver for identification, and he basically questioned, well, why do he have to display identification?
Hey, hold up! I gotta interrupt you.
Go ahead.
That was Clayton County. That wasn't Gwinnett. Get it right. Don't be calling out Gwinnett like that. We got enough problems of our own.
Now I thought it was Gwinnett. Did Gwinnett have another incident? Cause y'all Georgia, they off the chain these days.
Yeah, Gwinnett. We already talked about Gwinnett. That traffic stop you talking about was the Lyft driver in Clayton County.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, don't be calling it. Don't be.
Okay, so it was Clayton County officer, but as the story goes, the guy questioned him about why should he have to display identification, and they felt that he had an obligation to, and they tried to get him out the vehicle, and don't know what happened from there. But the video, which was captured, shows that they did a lot of closed fist strikes. While 2 of them had him subdued onto the ground. So what do you guys think about that incident if you've seen it?
I'm gonna let Vito go first.
Okay. So just to recap to make sure I'm understanding this right. So there was a traffic stop. There were 2 adults in the vehicle, female driver, male passenger. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in this instance, both the driver and the passenger in the vehicle were African American?
Yes.
And what about the officers?
2 white officers, male. 2 white male officers.
Okay, so
Let me add in too, Vito. The driver was a Lyft driver, so
okay,
he
so
was, the passenger was equal to being like in a cab.
okay. So what was the reason for the stop? Do we know that?
Broken tail light.
Yeah.
It was a tail light inoperable.
A broken tail light. And okay, so let me dive in. On a traffic stop, you've got to have, however minor or serious violation to stop a car in the first place. Okay. I've been in situations where I wanted to know what was going on inside of the vehicle. I needed to know who everyone was in that vehicle, but there was prior knowledge of something going on to want that. If I may give you an example, I'm working in an area where there's high drug activity, sales and purchase of drugs. And through my investigation, I see a vehicle that I need to stop because of the activity going on in that particular area. If I get a reason to stop that vehicle, lawful reason, in that case, I'm probably going to ask everybody in the car for identification. However, if this is a broken tail light and I stop them for that, the only person I need to be in contact with is the driver of that vehicle. I don't see a need to question or identify everybody in the vehicle, unless during the traffic stop or just prior to the traffic stop, there was something going on inside the car that captured my attention. People reaching, people keep looking back to see what I'm doing. That kind of stuff is going to prompt me to want to know who these people are in this car. But if I'm doing a traffic stop, I get behind the vehicle, I activate my lights, they pull over, I walk up to the car. The only person that's in violation at that point is the driver of that vehicle. So unless that passenger did something physically or said something, then I don't really have a need to contact that person.
So let me ask you this. And for those who doesn't know, we are talking about a traffic incident, and Vito is a long-time traffic supervisor. So he understands the broader picture of traffic incidents, along with LJ, who was a traffic officer for over half his career. But coming back, and I'm just playing devil's advocate with this question. Is it discretionary, whereas you say, I need to identify everybody in the car because you have a hunch or a suspicion, or is there some legal basis for it? And I only say that to say, this is what's in question now with the climate of police reform, is officers are taking these things that we were given the benefit of the doubt, which now is in question. The trustworthiness of law enforcement is in question, because the law enforcement community is continuously using those reasons to go a step beyond, and a lot of times it wasn't legal. So they will say, you fit the description. They will say, we received information. They will say, oh, we have a bulletin, but there's nothing to verify that, but they use that as their prelude to get to the next step. And that may be taken away if they continue to abuse it, because that was something that officers was given the benefit of the doubt, that it got to be that bit of trust that law enforcement entrusted with, that, hey, your word is bond. So now we're seeing so many incidents where our word is coming into question. Those preliminary statements might be taken away.
Well, I'll say this. Law enforcement officers, we're our own worst enemies when we have tools that we use and they're taken away because we abuse them.
Right.
Okay. We all know that has happened. There are laws that have been rescinded because the law enforcement community as a whole abuse those tactics. Okay. Law enforcement changes constantly and consistently. So what I would add to that, Sam, is from a perspective, we can debate all day long as to whether the officer is being honest or truthful or not. Okay. But on the side of the road, which I've said this to many people, to violators as well as people that I'm teaching, I teach traffic stops and crash investigations now. And what I say on a consistent basis is this: you cannot and will not win a battle on the side of the road. That's not the arena to address that issue. What I would suggest is I would ask the officer, why do I need to present or provide you my identification? Is there something that I've done that requires you to have that? I would ask that question. And based on his response, I will determine my next move. Now, when I say my next move, it's not on the side of the road. If he says, because you match the description of somebody I'm looking for, or if he says because I said so, or if he said because you black and I'm white, it doesn't matter what he say. Whatever reason he give me and he still requires that, I'm gonna provide it. But the information that I've received from him after asking that question is going to be documented. And I'm going to see somebody about his conduct. And when I go see the person about his conduct, if I'm not satisfied with the response from that individual, then I'm going to see somebody else. And I'm just going to climb that ladder until someone listens and understands what I'm dealing with. Because I can guarantee you this, and I'll go out on the limb and say, I'm not the first person that he stopped and done that to and had no legal right to do so. So let me ask each one of you guys this question. You remember back in the day when you can just, if I got 4 or 5 people standing on the corner, I can go up and I can start an investigation. If somebody ran from me when I bailed out of my car, when I got out of my car, I could arrest them. We can't do that anymore because those are powers or tactics or things that we use, then we abuse those. So if I walk up on a corner and people just start running, I can't arrest them for that. So I put that situation in the same boat as that. If I've done nothing illegal or wrong, why are you requiring me to provide you my identification? Because if I'm standing on the street and you ask me for my name, I don't have to give it to you. If you ask me for my identification, I don't have to give it to you. But if I've done something, reasonable suspicion, if I've done something that has raised your suspicion about me, then I'm required to do that. So officers, they come up with these tactics. You know, you match a description. You know, there was a black male that just robbed the bank and wearing the same thing you are, about your height, whatever the case may be. I'm gonna take that information and then I'm going to see somebody about it.
Yeah, and that's the right course of action. But now we're talking about who's being who it's affecting most, and we're probably talking about African American community, those disenfranchised, those that have a job to go to that don't have the time to invest in taking off from work, going down to internal affairs, and they probably don't trust that it's going to be investigated thoroughly or just be swept under the rug, you know, or it's going to be long and drawn out, or the the consequences will not have any impact on the individual officer, that trust has been eroded. So I understand that's the proper course of action, but I think a lot of people just don't believe in it. And that's what we need to get back to, which is coming back around to, they don't believe in our leadership, that they're going to do the right thing. And so it emboldens a lot of the officers to continuously do it.
What's the alternative, Sam?
Well, we got to get more effective leadership in place. So again, now we're back to the vote. But as of right now, we got to keep, like you say, we got to keep using that course of action that you just suggested. We got to keep using it, and we just got to keep chipping away. And it's a frustrating endeavor, and it's frustrating a lot of people, but there is no other alternative but to keep moving forward and taking baby steps.
I'm gonna add some information that's paint the picture more clearer to this incident that happened in Clayton County.
Okay.
Like you said, it was the guy, his girl, I think they had a child with them, then a friend or Lyft driver. He got stopped, broken tail light. The police officer asked for identification from the guy. The guy happened to have some outstanding warrants. And as I previously said in some other conversations we've had, generally, it's the bad guy's job to do bad things, it's the police job to catch it. So I don't know how they did, if they went about saying, hey, I need to see, you need to show me some ID or whatever, but there's different ways to get to that information if you really need to, because for one, I doubt very seriously if they have seatbelts on. So if they're traveling in the vehicle as passengers, they need to have a seatbelt. If you're going to issue a seatbelt violation, you need to have identification, correct?
Correct.
So that gives you reason to ask that person for ID. Now if he butts or he resists by giving you false information or refusing to give information, then you're correcting your, taking him by force or identifying or removing him from the vehicle. But, and keeping it real, keeping it 100, a lot of times, a lot of officers, they'll skip those steps. They'll go the super cop role, snatch them out the car, find something, lock them up, and then you got an attorney. He probably got an attorney on retainer. If he's been arrested a number of times, he know the game. So the first thing they're gonna do is, if you got a bad arrest, that's gonna be fruits of a poisonous tree. So if he got a gun that got some bodies on it, that evidence is not gonna be any good because you obtained it by fraudulent matters, fruits of a poisonous tree. Everything you did after that is not gonna be any good. If he was the driver of the vehicle, he had a body in the trunk of the car. If you stopped him on the wrong, saying that he crossed a yellow line or whatever, and your wrong and stuff thrown out, your initial stop is thrown out, that body, all of that gets thrown out. So that's one thing officers have to be taught to take your time, learn the ways of do the things the right way. If they got their seatbelt on, let them go. Write the driver a ticket, let him go. He gonna get caught. The guy had, I think, 3 or 4 outstanding warrants. That's why he didn't want to give his name. We all know that. People that's wanted, they're gonna give you the false name. I've had people that they've given their brother's name, and they had his social security number memorized, the driver license memorized, and until I got that person down and fingerprinted them, because they kept saying that ain't me. Then I found out it was their brother, and they found out it was their brother, and they didn't even know it. So, like I said, a lot of times you do if you do the right thing all the time, you're gonna be all right.
May I? Smokey, you hit on a couple things that were some of my questions that I had for the whole issue. Is one, was the purpose of asking for ideas because you were issuing a passenger violation? If that's not the case, then what is the purpose if you're stopping a driver for equipment violation? what is the point of asking anybody in the vehicle anything? Because the purpose of that stop on the surface is because this driver has something that's inoperable on their vehicle, and you cite them for it, warning them for it, whatever the case may be. Who else is in the car, in my view, is irrelevant. Unless there's, you know, like I say, something else, seatbelt or whatever. I think the problem that I have, if there was no seatbelt violations from passengers, is you stop a Lyft driver that was on a lift, so they're supposed to have a little light on. It's no different than stopping a cab. So why couldn't some compassion or some sympathy been given to the fact that this person is working and they got passengers? Leave people alone, man. Even if you're gonna stop them and write them a ticket for the light, okay, stop them, write a ticket for the light, and let them go. It's like that's not the time for that. I guess is the best way I can say that. That's if you just got to write a ticket. Fine, there's more people you can write tickets to. That don't have to be the one you write when the people trying to work. Now, if you want to stop and say, hey, you got a light out or whatever, cool. But that situation shouldn't have turned into that. And I think having conducted thousands of traffic stops, I think that's incumbent upon the officer to understand what are you dealing with? What kind of situation are you in? Because I can't see myself stopping a Lyft driver and it lead to that.
Most likely it was probably a fishing expedition on the officer's part. And one of the rules I used to abide by is that if this vehicle was on the other side of town or in a gated community, would I do the same stop? Would I treat these people the same way? I used to do people the same way all the time, no matter who it was. If I were to stop people on the corner, I'd do it. I don't care if it was in Mandarin, the West Side. It could be downtown in front of the police station. I don't care. I'm gonna do it the same way all the time.
One of the things I would like to know, if I was in that position and I'm going to file a complaint. I'm going to comply at the traffic stop because I want to survive that. But I'm going to file a complaint. And one of the things that I am going to request is documentation on the subject, the officer. Does he, and let's get back to what Smokey was just saying, does he conduct himself the same way on every traffic stop? Every traffic stop he does, is he asking passengers for identification? That's one of the things that I need to know. One of the things I would like to know, because that gives you a snapshot of the way he or she polices. Okay. I'm going to ask every driver for the identification. I stop you. I'm going to write you a citation. I'm going to give you a warning, whatever it is I'm going to do. My business is with the driver. If I walk up to a car and I see a passenger that's violated the law, then that person becomes an interest of me as well. Whether you don't have on a seatbelt, if you've got an open container, there aren't, like Law is saying, there aren't very many things that a passenger can do that's going to grab my attention. But if you do, then I am going to have a legitimate, lawful reason to identify you. If you haven't done those things, then my business is not with you. As we all know, people interject themselves in traffic stops, passengers, and they want to tell you what the driver was doing. I ignore those people. And I may say, I'm sorry, but this has nothing to do with you. My business is with the driver. Now, if they continue to interfere, now they're hampering my ability to conduct this traffic stop, and now you got my attention. So now, in a situation like that, Now you're going to become somebody I deal with, I talk to. I may ask you for your identification because at some point you're going to push me to a level where I'm going to say, me conducting my business with you is making my traffic stop that much more unsafe because I got to pay attention to you and not this driver. Or if I'm able to, if they listen and just leave it alone and let it go, then I'm done. I ignore them as much as I can. I deal with the driver and I move on to the next violator. But I don't see very many instances or situations where, definitely not just walking up to a car, where I'm going to step in and go, hey, okay, you got a tail light out. Let me get your driver's license. And then, sir, let me get yours, and whoever else, let me get yours. I don't need that. I want to get this violation done and move on. Because the longer I'm there, we know how officer safety is. The longer I'm on this traffic stop, that's the longer I'm in traffic. That's the longer I'm impeding traffic. That's the longer I'm having to deal with a car full of people. I want to get it done and move on. If that's all it is.
Well, like Sam brought up before about the leadership and supervisors, I know that being a patrol officer, you was, I'll say, encouraged to do more on-view activity, and which includes traffic stops, stopping, people, what they call suspicious people, or making, just on-view activity. And those are the things that a lot of people don't know how to go about doing that. If you don't know the rules of the game, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna end up losing sooner or later. Whether it's on the officer's part or the violation's part or both of them.
If you don't know the rules of the game, don't play the game.
Yeah, but in this instance, I think that the individual who got stopped, the man who got arrested, he wasn't gonna file no complaint. He knew he had those outstanding warrants. At that point, he was gonna do everything he could to not identify himself, and it just goes with the game. And it's, you got to use it. Being an officer, you look for those clues. You look for those, like you said, Vito, those reasonable suspicions to be able to get in his business like that. And if he don't do anything to raise your antennas, let him go. You gonna get caught again, whether it's today, tomorrow, next year, 10 years from now. That ain't your problem. Your checks stay the same.
That I think, Smokey, therein lies the problem is our skin folk don't get quote unquote let go. So that was going to be investigated out to it ended up the way it ended up. And I don't know, everything surrounding that whole situation. I just know I'm gonna put myself in that situation and go, if I'm stopping you for whatever I'm stopping you for, unless I walk up to the car and I notice passengers not wearing the seatbelts, I could care less who you have in the car. I'm interested in issuing this citation for whatever it is I'm issuing for, and we're moving on. So again, I'm gonna throw that back on. Was this a situation where the officer was trying to investigate beyond just a traffic stop? And that's I think that puts that particular issue in a whole nother light if it was, because now you're going back to something that Vito said, is everybody that you stop, are you asking for passengers ID? And what's the purpose for that? Is it so you can know who in the car, so you can see if you got people with warrants? I mean, is that the case with everybody, all races, like everybody you stop? Is that the case, or is it just one part of the population that you do that with?
Well, that's one of the things that I used to do all the time with criminal patrol. I'd make a traffic stop, and I would ask, if you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. And it's just the demeanor that you get, you act like it's nonchalant. It's not that big of a deal. Hey, while I'm here, y'all got your ID with you? Or, can I get your ID? And usually they'll just give it to me. Or they'll say, hey, my name's so-and-so. Okay, fine. I've had people say no. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll be back. And like you say, tend to the driver and let them go. And that's shocked, that's surprised. They're like, what, you're not going to, toss the car? You're not going to make something up? No, I'll see you again. Somebody see you.
But that's the difference. they'll say no, and you move on because you're not interested in violating people's rights, and you don't take that personal. That don't happen with all law enforcement officials.
So let me ask. Okay, a lot of time. Well, we all know that traffic enforcement is the easiest way to create some activity, and we don't. And you know, we all know that there is no quota, but as a supervisor once told me, there is expectation. So a supervisor expects that if you're going to go out and on an 8-hour shift, they do expect some production, you know? So you have to create some things in order to show some activity and production. So I'm gonna ask Vito this question as a supervisor, you know, did you have expectations for your officers, and did you put emphasis on generating some activity, or would you have, in this climate, would you put more emphasis on the fact that in this climate, we have to be more mindful of what's going on, what is drawing so much attention to law enforcement, how easy it would be to become on the 6 o'clock news in this day and time? Would you like, as a supervisor, would you say, hey, listen, I got to look out for my guys too. We got a job to do, but we got to understand the climate that we're currently working in, which we got to put more emphasis on, you know, respecting people's rights, understanding that everybody got a camera phone, you know, or would it be, hey, I need production, you know, I got to see some numbers.
Okay, so for the sake of this response, LJ can speak to it as well, since how long did you work with me, LJ?
12 years. 12 years.
Something like that. Okay,
yeah.
so ever, right. So Sam, to answer your question, yes, as a supervisor, I do expect you to go out and do your job. Okay. And I'm not trying to water this down or make it vanilla, because I'm a firm believer. If you do your job the right way, the climate doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, or it shouldn't matter to an officer, if you're doing your job consistently, fairly, across the board for all people. Okay. So if our assignment was traffic enforcement, crash investigations. Okay. So I expected every one of the guys that worked on my squad to go out and enforce traffic laws. Now, what I didn't do was, I'm not telling you how many citations you need to write. I'm not telling you whether you're going to write a warning or paying citation. That is your discretion as an officer. I don't dictate that. No supervisor should ever dictate that. But as a supervisor, you can't come and work in Zone 5, assigned to the traffic unit, and you write no citations. Because there are many, many, many traffic violators out there. Many. And if you're not doing it, you're doing one of two things. One, you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, or you're not doing your job. And neither one of those sit well with me as a supervisor. I'm going to tell you to go do your job, and I expect you to do your job. And I expect for you to treat people right. I expect for you to treat people fairly and do your job the right way, the way that we've been trained to do it. And that's what I expect. I am not going to tell you how to do your job. There have been people that worked for me that felt like, for whatever reason, they didn't want to write tickets. And I'm okay with that. If that's not your cup of tea, I'm good with that. You just can't work for me. So find somewhere else to go. I'm not going to be upset. I'm not gonna write you up and demand anything. Because if you're working for Vito, you're here because you want to be here. You're here because there have been some good things said about your work product and your work ethic. If you come here and you don't show me that, then I'm sorry, you can't work for me. And LJ can probably give you 2 people right off the bat You don't come here and do nothing, okay? But I'm not going to hold your hand and tell you to go out and write a certain number of tickets because, one, most people don't know this, but that's a federal violation. I'm not trying to go to jail for nobody, okay? Especially, period, but especially federally, okay? So I can't tell you how many tickets to write. Those guys that work with me in Zone 5, they came up with what they wanted. They got together as a squad and they determined what level of productivity was okay with them as a group.
That was the minimum.
Right. And if somebody didn't meet that, they dealt with that. I didn't have to deal with it. They dealt with that. And that was an understanding between me and the guys that work with me. That's a trust factor. That's the fact that I have people that I trust that's going to go out and do their job to the best of their ability in a very comparable and very fair way. We're not out bashing nobody's head because you tugged on my cape. That's not going to happen. If we got to put hands on you, you made us have to do that. You did that. A perfect day for us was to go out, write tickets to save lives, and go home. I'm okay with not putting nobody in jail. I really am. That means that nobody deserved to go to jail that day. Everybody that we dealt with did what they were supposed to do. If everybody came in and said, hey, listen, Sarge, we didn't write no tickets today because we didn't have no violators. I trust that because I trust the people that work with me. But that's a relationship that you got to have. So there were people that worked for me back in the day before traffic when I had a patrol squad that I didn't trust. I didn't. And there were some people that I didn't trust that worked for me that violated some very, very serious laws. But again, as a supervisor, all I can ask you to do is your job and do it to the best of your ability. So that's my response to that.
Well, like I said, I've known, we ain't talking about something that ain't never, this been going on for the longest. This before we became police, this was going on. But the difference, like I said before, the difference is that everybody got this like 5x7 piece of equipment in their hand that can record not only video, not only pictures, but they got audio, and they can live stream it. So that's the difference. There's like instant accountability. I used to train my recruits, and I always tell them, look, you do not want to make case law. You don't want a Supreme Court case, with your name tagged onto it. So you do the right thing all the time, don't worry about it. But then you have these, what I noticed, a lot of departments are lean, and they got younger officers training newer officers, and they don't know what they're not really seasoned. So they're teaching them they're picking up their bad habits, and it's a snowball effect. And when they get called on the carpet, you got, everybody wants to, that's not, I didn't train them. You got to have like I think it was like you said, Vito, you let your men police themselves pretty much. But a lot of squads and a lot of people that work around people, they don't want to step on nobody's toes. They don't want nobody not liking them, or they want to be labeled a snitch or whatever. They just turn a blind eye instead of, hey, correcting that person, saying, look, you shouldn't do that. You got to let that person go. I've done it. I've gotten people pissed off at me. I didn't care because it was the right thing. But
so that goes back to Sam when he says the issue with leadership. And being a leader doesn't necessarily mean that you have rank. Being a leader is something that's from within inside an individual. I'm going to have people do things. LJ never made rank, okay? But LJ was a leader in that squad. And people looked up to him. People called him. People that had more years in service than he did. But he carried himself, and he did the right thing, and they knew he was going to do the right thing. And my thing is this. If you are a person that's going to do what's right at all costs, then those that are going to do wrong are not going to do it around you, because they know you're going to step up and correct them, whether that's talking to them directly or whether that's going to internal. had an individual ask me, I got into a long debate one time on Facebook about was I a person that went and became complainants in internal investigations. Yes, I did it prior to me making it right and after I made it right, because it was about doing what was right. If you can't be in this job and be concerned about people liking you. That's evident today, correct? You can't be in this job and be concerned about people not liking you. You got to do what's right. Because at the end of the day, what you do, you're going to have to answer to God for. If you're treating people wrong, intentionally, you're treating people wrong, you're creating scenarios where people are going to jail. Back in the day, you got people planting dope on folk. You're going to have to answer to that, okay? And Smokey, you're absolutely right. The difference today is it's instant because everybody has a camera. Back in the day, police officers were able to lie their way out of stuff. You know, they covered up for each other. I've never been a part of that, never will be a part of that. But it's much tougher today because you got cameras, whether it's a body-worn camera for the officer, whether it's a cell phone for a 5-year-old. 5-year-olds got cell phones with cameras and videos. So every individual police officer has to do this job for themselves. If they're in it for anything other than servicing the public, it's the wrong job for them, in my opinion. You gotta, and we all know it's not for the pay, correct? You can't put a price on my life. You gotta do this job because you want to genuinely help people. Sometimes that means helping people by putting them in jail. I've had countless people to thank me because I put them in jail and it made a difference in their lives. This thing comes down to every individual police officer in this country. Why are you doing this job? And every one of us need to look at ourselves in the mirror and answer that question truthfully. If not to your department, to yourself. Are you doing this for the right reason? And you can't lie to you. And if you can't honestly say that you're doing this for the right reason, do us all a favor and get out. Because what you do as one individual, it hurts us all if it's the wrong thing.
Can I use that to segue into another topic? It's right along those lines. This is
absolutely
the LA people, the police officers that were shot in LA.
Yes,
I know you guys probably heard about that. And the hospital, the reports of the people being outside the hospital, blocking the entranceway, and the crowd chanting, "We hope he die. We hope he die. Hope they die." The reporter getting arrested. Initially, the department stated that the reporter didn't show credentials. They was impeding the arrest of another individual. And with this being 2020, and everybody got cameras there, including that reporter, when she got released, her video showed that she had her lanyard on, showing that she was a reporter. There wasn't a crowd chanting that we hope that the police die. It was like one of two individuals. It wasn't a whole crowd. It was a group of maybe 10 to no more than 20. But for the police department to put out information like that, it kind of, like you were saying, if you got your department lying to the public and then it's being disputed the very next day, that causes a friction. It's like, what do we believe? Do we supposed to wait? Do we believe what the police say or do we don't? Because we seeing this story that you just told us is not true because this reporter got video in addition to other people got video of it. So what do you think about that situation?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, with the leadership, with the supervisory.
So I've heard and I've read some articles about that. Okay. People have a right to say whatever they want to say. Okay. There's this thing in this country called freedom of speech. I have had people say things about me. I've had people say things to me but you got to have thick skin in this profession. You got to be able to just let stuff roll. I get it touches me emotionally, even from this side of the country, when I hear people 1, 2, 10, entire crowd that says that they hope a police officer die. That doesn't touch me because it's a police officer. It touches me because it's a human being. So that's like me standing outside somewhere and saying, if I'm forced to use deadly force on somebody, let that person die. That's not me. If I'm forced to use deadly force on someone, my next step, once it's safe, is to provide first aid to try to save that life. So as an officer, I understand how that pricks at your heart, but you can't allow that to dictate your actions, because whether they believe it or whether they really want this person to die, they have to answer for that, not me. But if I'm gonna allow you to drag me into that mess and conduct myself against God's law about loving your brothers and loving one another, I got to answer for that. So again, it comes down to the individual person. And when you talk about leadership, if I was a leader in that organization, some people gonna have to answer for that. Some people gonna have to answer that tough question as to why did we make that arrest? What law did that person break? And let me ask you that, because I don't know. What law did the media person make or break?
They told her to move, to get back, and it's right after after you give a command, get back, and then they grabbed her and knocked her down. Actually, you see the feet stomping on her camera, on her recorder.
Nah, based on what you're telling me, Smoke, as a leader,
they had the videos about it. I'm just saying, with that kind of that erodes the public trust even more in law enforcement.
Get caught in lies like that,
and then getting caught in a lie. That's what I'm saying. It's like, what do you do? Especially, you want to feel sympathy for the police officers that got shot, but then you got people, that from that same agency that lying on these people, especially a reporter doing her job.
So the way I would address that is, as a leader in that organization, I am going to address that with the people, the officers that were involved in that. We're going to make sure that there's a complete and detailed investigation completed. And I know that's a cliche. People say that all the time. But me as a person, as a leader in an organization, I'm going to ensure that that happens. And the outcome is going to be, like all records, public record. You want to go see what the outcome was? Now, I'm not going to go out and seek the individual and say, hey, I'm sorry that you was arrested. And if they require that, then I'll give it some serious thought. But I'm not going to initiate that. But I am going to make sure that investigation is complete, thorough, and it's a matter of public record once it's said and done. And then we're going to have some conversations and some training for the rest of the people not to do that. And the one thing that we are missing in this country as police officers, we don't have empathy for people other than ourselves or our close friends and family. It is so difficult to find someone that has any empathy for someone that they don't know. But yet, we're police officers and we go out, we do something every day that we take for granted as police officers, in my opinion. We put our lives on the line every day. People say it, but do they really understand what that means? You're putting your life on the line every day for people that despise you, and you got to be okay with that. You can't go out with this revenge or this me against the world mentality, because it's not right, and you're not going to be able to effectively do your job if that's the mentality that you carry around every day. You have to go out and provide a selfless service to your community. You got to. And if you can't do that, I say again, find you something else to do. Go do something else. Because what you're going to end up doing is hurting all of us that gave so much to this profession in our lives. And the four of us, gave a lot in this profession. And I don't want it to be for nothing.
Well, the biggest
Boom.
is we got to deal with the current times and the climate that we're dealing with right now. And the biggest thing is public mistrust of law enforcement. And we keep talking about the leadership because it all starts at the top. And you're speaking what we all feel in the way that the four of us tried to go out and do our job. But we have that empathy. We come out of the neighborhoods that were disenfranchised, that we were judged and targeted. So we understand. But who doesn't understand is those that has never been a target, those who have never felt that oppression. Then they're getting into these leadership positions and they still don't understand and have the empathy. So the big problem is you keep saying it comes down to the individual, and you are right. But when that individual don't see anything wrong with what he's doing, plus he has been indoctrinated into a culture that says we stand on this thin blue line. And we've talked about this for weeks. You know, we can stand on that thin blue line, but if the thin blue line is wrong, where will you default to? And so you have a lot of officers that are putting this loyalty to the thin blue line above what is right, because they are more concerned about what the guy next to him thinks about him. Are we gonna be friends? I personally, I didn't give a damn about friends, you know, because I was a lone wolf, you know. But you got a lot of them that running these packs and running these cliques, and they got to have these friendships, you know, and they're being supported by the leadership at the top because they went through the academy with a lot of these supervisors. They go on fishing trips with a lot of these supervisors. Then you bring in the fact that the union don't represent us as the African-American community. So then the union is also giving them, emboldening them and giving them support when they're wrong, that they won't call out these bad officers. Now, because a lot of attention is being brought to the subject, you have a lot of leaders that are actually coming out speaking against rogue officer, taking swift actions against misconduct. The two officers that we spoke of in Clayton County, they have been fired. At least one of them I know of, but he has been fired. So they are taking swift action. But I guess we got to get back to acknowledging that if the leadership if the leadership don't hold the people accountable, the leadership don't hold them accountable to the policies the policies is in place, but it gets to their friends. It gets to people that know them and want to show them a little bit more professional courtesy than they deserve, and they start sweeping a lot of stuff under the rug. So I'm just saying the leadership is responsible for where we're at and to where we're heading. And if
I got a
they
solution.
In place, it's not going to be all for naught.
I got a solution. It's not a popular one, but I got a solution. And we've talked about this before, and that is anytime an officer generates a complaint that leads to a lawsuit, if that lawsuit is paid out of police pension funds, that behavior will be corrected. And it won't require leadership to do it. So the incentive, in my view, not just for the officer that gets fired, for all officers to do right isn't in place right now, and it should be, because you got a job that you swore an oath to. So doing right should be a part of your DNA. But they don't have the incentive. So since it's not there, create it. And I say created by, if we getting sued because of your actions, that's coming out of police pension funds. Now, how often do you think bad actions would take place if they were actually paying lawsuits out of police pension funds?
Oh yeah.
we would fix that immediately, because whoever was out there messing up, the tables would be turned. Now you getting blackballed because you costing us money. So now you about to get the bar soap and wrapped up in a towel treatment.
Is that called a shower?
That one. I'm on board with that one.
I mean, that because you got people that just won't do right, and I'm not accepting of the fact that because you raised your right hand and you took that oath that you're gonna do right. I don't believe you. I don't trust you. So if you put that mechanism in place, and it would be extremely unpopular, but I guarantee you it'd be 100% effective.
I think now the comment is a lot of whataboutism. It's like, well, I know, but what about them? And what about that? When I came on, it was the police officers were held to a higher standard. And I don't know when we got that downhill slope or when it went down the sliding board, but nobody told me about it. So, I mean, what happened to being held to a higher standard? Like it or not, that's what you got.
Well, that comment I have found to only be employed or made when they're trying to get rid of a specific officer for whatever reason, whether they deserve it or not. They throw that out a lot. I happen to believe that should be done every day. If I was a police chief or sheriff, one of the things that I would require on a daily basis. All right, everybody here over 40, correct?
39.
Okay.
No comment.
So what I'm getting at here is that when I was in grade school, we didn't start our day without the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm assuming that you guys remember that. Every day, that was the start of your day. When I went to summer camp, the day didn't start until the Pledge of Allegiance was recited. One of the things that I would do is that I would make officers in briefing or roll call or whatever they want to call it, recite that oath that they've taken. Because in the academy, we had to memorize it. But once you got out of the academy, never said it again.
The law enforcement code of ethics.
Every day before you start your job, you're going to recite that. We're going to stand up. The supervisors are going to be there, and you're going to recite that every day. Because I'm a firm believer, if you say something long enough and enough times, you believe it. Somebody tell you something long enough or enough times, you start to believe it. So one of the things that it will not do, it will not let you forget the purpose of your job. It will not let you forget what you're there to do, because you recite that every day. And part of making your probation is to recite that for me. When you get out of training and you coming up on the end of your probation so that you are a tenured officer, you need to recite that for me. Now, that's one of the things that this climate has forced me to take on, because when we were young officers coming out of the academy, we didn't have these issues. Now, like it was said earlier, these are things that are not new. What's new is the technology. But even back then, you surrounded yourself with people that were like yourself. If you were a good officer, if you was an aggressive officer, and you did things, but you did things the right way, you surrounded yourself with officers like that. And we've had people come in our fold and patrol, LJ and I, that didn't want to do things the right way. They got dealt with. And I always referred the squad to handle it. And if it continued, or if they couldn't handle it, then I would step in. And if I handled it, it wasn't about trying to correct the problem. It was trying to get rid of the problem. And that means not pushing you off to another sergeant or another squad or another color squad or it was out the door. That's my position. That's, if you're not doing good for the good of the agency, you're not doing good for my community, you're not good for us. You're not good anywhere. So I don't need you here. That was my position. That's how I dealt with situations like that. But I didn't have to do that a lot because I surrounded myself with people who I trusted, who trusted me, and we did things the right way. Now, do we make mistakes? Yeah, we do. We're human. But it was a mistake. It wasn't malice. It wasn't something where we sat down and said, we're just gonna go do what needs to be done. And we've had some very different assignments in our career. LJ and I are working on some things. We've been put in some very difficult situations, but we came through it because we treated people fairly, man. We treated people, even if you're going to jail, I'm not stripping you of your dignity. You know, even if you fight me, we fighting folk and LJ pick them up off the ground and he's brushing dirt off of them. Like you said, Smokey, it's the game. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. If the police win, once you're under our control, there's no need for anything else. Unless you want to continue to resist, which we've had people do that, but then there are mechanisms in place to where you can secure those individuals so we don't have to hurt them, they're not hurting us. And we use that. And then going back to Sam about leadership, is I get it, Sam. Yes, the leaders are part of the problem. They're not the entire problem, but they are part of the problem for this. And I'll say it this way: the individuals first. And if they come up through the ranks feeling the way that you suggesting that they feel, that you know, they just, again, going back to surround themselves with people alike, because that's what we do. We're going to be in a group that we're most comfortable with. And if this group of people tends to not treat people fairly, and you're okay with that, then you're going to find that group of officers that do that. And you're going to get people to make rank from that. Yes, and now they're responsible for a larger portion of this agency, of any agency. And then they start trickling down those values to their subordinates. That's an issue. But the only way to stop that is for an individual to resist that and not fall to the pressure because it's a sergeant or lieutenant or a chief or sheriff or whoever that's doing that. Somebody got to stand up. I'm standing up. I don't care who you are. I'm standing up. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And I'm standing up for what's right. That's why I probably would never, ever be a chief in anybody's department, because as we know, you got to have a level of yesness, I call it, to make that. I'm not a yes man. I fell out with some people of higher rank because I'm not a yes man. You know, and I'm okay with that. But as an individual, I got to sleep at night. And I can't sleep at night if I'm not treating people right. If you are sleeping well at night and you are mistreating people, you got some serious issues in your life, not just your job, in your life. So I agree. The leadership plays a role in that. But an individual has the power. A group of individuals, people that wants to do the right thing, has the power to stop that or to curtail that to a certain level. You're probably not going to get rid of it all, you know, but we don't have to be. Somebody got to love their agency enough to say enough is enough. Somebody need to love LAPD enough to say what they did, the way Smokey explained it to me, is wrong, and step up and say it's wrong. Whether they are a leader, and like I said before, you don't have to have rank to be a leader. But it sounds to me like we got a whole bunch of followers. I'm going to do what he did because he did it. I'm going to do what he did because I want to be liked. I'm going to do what he did because I want to protect the thin blue line. I want to protect the thin blue line for what's right. Person is doing crap that's wrong, they're not protecting my thin blue line. I'm going to be involved with people in my agency that I feel do things the right way and for the right reason. That's who I want to surround myself with. If you're not, sorry.
But you've got, with LA, you've had people that was part of that Rampart debacle back in the day.
Yes.
And they made rank. I mean, what do you, like Sam was saying, you got to somewhere you got to hold somebody accountable instead of rewarding bad behavior. Because you see other people say, well, they did that, they got a slap on the wrist, and look, they made right. So it can't be that bad.
Somebody somewhere has got to step up, step out of line, and do what's right. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I believe that it's easier said than done, because you got to face these folk every day. But if you got a police chief or sheriff who is condoning this, then the agency is probably not going to survive it, or the agency is not going to be in a light that they want to be in. You got to have somebody that's going to be tough and do what's right, and not for the cameras, man. This has got to be because it's the right thing to do. It's not for the cameras.
And I can just add that standing up for what's right comes with a cost. But it I don't think it never has an impact on who you are, what you become as an officer, but it does come with a price. And I will until they throwing dirt on me, I will always say I think that's the reason why I never made rank, because I was not willing to play the game.
I'm not going to sacrifice my integrity for nobody. No agency, no individual. I'm going to do what needs to be done because it's the right thing to do. And it's as simple as that. Everybody don't carry that. I get it. But for those that don't carry that and are around the people that do carry that, those individuals need to step up and put those people out.
And I keep going back to, that's why we're here, because that's what the public is asking for. The public is asking for those good officers that are seeing the bad officers or witnessing the bad officer. They're asking, why aren't you speaking up? Because your silence speaks volumes. So that's what the public is outraged over, is that for so long, this has been witnessed, and no one has, like you said, stepped up and said this is wrong and took a stance, even willing to risk it all. The only reason a lot of leadership is taking action now, because they can't defend it because it's been caught on video. But for the last 50 years, when there was nobody to question these officers' actions, you know, where an investigation could get swept under the rug, it's been passed down from leader to leader, from officer to officer, and they created this culture. Now it has boiled over to where we're at now, because it is verifiable and they don't have any defense. So the public is saying, why don't more officers speak out when an officer, they see what I see? When an officer did wrong or this was excessive, why can't they just come out and say, oh yeah, he was wrong, rather than always saying, I don't have anything to say, or supporting that officer as if he did the right thing, and you know he didn't. You know, so that's where the frustration comes from, and I'm feeling the frustration too.
One of the things I noticed is
I can give you a good example, Sam, of similar to what you're talking about, because I can recall taking a complaint to my then supervisor right there, and it ended up being a full-blown investigation of excessive use of force, of something I witnessed. And during the disciplinary hearing, the people on the panel were questioning me like I did something wrong, because I witnessed this officer do this, and all I did was tell the supervisor. So in the disciplinary hearing, I asked them, I'm like, why are you questioning me as if I did something wrong? This disciplinary hearing is not for me. is for, and I gave the officer's name, and I was like, that's the person y'all need to be talking to like that. But it was as if I did something wrong because my complaint initiated this one. I think he got suspended, but it initiated that. But I wasn't doing nothing wrong. He was.
So that goes right back to what Sam was saying about the culture and the leaders protecting the people, the leaders in that particular situation. I'm going to say that they were a part of that culture. You know, back in the day, you know, when they had slapsticks and y'all know how we got treated back in the day before we became police officers, right? So that's a tradition that's been passed on for generations, okay? So some people believe that that's how you police. That is not how you police. But the decision makers in this process that Law is talking about, I can only assume were a part of that culture. And how dare you step up and complain on your brother? How dare you? This is a brother in blue. This is a person that's going to have your back and you don't have his back. Well, I say to people that take that frame of thought and that frame of reference and say, if you're my brother, you're not going to put me in that kind of situation.
Right.
If you are the person that's going to have my back, I'm going to have your back. But listen, we got to do it the right way. I don't condone, none of us got into law enforcement to condone breaking the law. None of us did. Nobody wanted to be the police because they wanted to break the law and get away with it. That's not the reason we came here. So if you can't do things the right way, you swore to protect people. If you can't do it the right way, then don't do it at all. And I can't say that enough. If you are such a coward that you got to go drop kick somebody in the chest when they got handcuffs on, you are a coward. And you cannot work for me. You can't work around me. You can't even be in my same airspace. Because I don't trust you, because you don't have my back. If we get into a situation where it's
and I'm gonna tell.
We get into a situation where we got to get down, I'm not gonna trust you, man. If I feel that you're a coward, you ain't coming to my defense. You going the other way. If you are a police officer that the only time you want to throw hands is when you got 5 and 6 units assisting you, you ain't my kind of police officer. You ain't my kind of police officer. If I got to throw hands, I'm going to throw hands until my backup get them. And I'm going to do the best I can. That's all I can do. But leadership is, I get it, Sam. I'm with you 110% on that, you know, but individuals have to become a group. And that group has got to attack that issue and address that issue. And then somebody in leadership got to be willing to listen. Somebody in leadership got to be willing to do things differently. Somebody in leadership got to remember why they became the police. They got to remember that they did this job or took on this job to help them.
And those individuals, or not enough of those individuals, are put in a position of authority. And I say authority because, like you said, there's a difference between leadership and authority. We were all leaders regardless what position we were put in. But you have a lot of people who are given this authority that are not good leaders. And they're the ones that are not holding people accountable. They're the ones that don't have the courage to stand up and make the right decisions and do the right things. And then they got people that are following them and they're leading them down the wrong path. So, you know, it's a character thing when you come on, you know, and we came on with certain character traits that allowed us to navigate 25, 30 years in law enforcement that a lot of people didn't get. And maybe those privileged people, maybe those are those ones that, like you say, lack that empathy, you know, because they haven't been oppressed. You know, I mean, I know that when I dealt with a lot of citizens, I looked at them and, hey, I feel what you feel because I'm getting the same thing from my own leadership. I'm getting the same thing. So when you telling me how you feel, how they're treating you, I'm like, shit, they treat me the same way. You know, so my perspective was different. You know, like I'm like, I gotta treat you right because I understand what it is to be oppressed, you know? And I had to tell a supervisor, you know, you treating me, I mean, as police officers, we came on to help those who were not in a position to help themselves. So now as a police supervisor, I would expect for you to even carry that on when you dealing with subordinates, because I may not be in a position to do it all by myself. So I may look for some kind of help or support from you. But when you don't provide that and you oppressing me, I can't even imagine. Well, shit, I can't imagine what you're doing to someone you don't even know. So, you know, my reoccurring theme is always going to be leadership. And we're talking effective leadership versus ineffective leadership.
I got you. I got you. And I have a theory, but that's for another show.
Yeah, one of the things that, as a side note, the benefits of treating people like you want somebody to treat your family members or treat yourself is that they'll look out for you. It's sad to say, but it was sometimes that I didn't trust the people that I worked with. I had more trust in, I always worked the what they call the bad sections of town. I trusted them. They were my people. They were, when I take that uniform on, that's who I was. So I had a rapport with them. I hung out and I talked with them, whatever. They looked out for me. They policed. If somebody rose up or tried to buck or whatever, they checked them. I didn't have to throw no hands. But if I had to put my hands on somebody, they knew, hey, you need to go on and go with that man, because he, you know, they like you say, Vito, with your squad, they police themselves, and these are citizens. That's because they knew that I was going to treat them straight up. I was going to be fair with them. And the majority of the time, I've always heard officers talk about they've had fights where people just went, you know, stood toe to toe. It's like, come on, or whatever. I'm like, that shit ain't never happened to me. You know, I'm like, why I never, much stuff that I got into, that never happened to me, because I expected people to resist arrest. Okay, you got to go to jail. I know you don't want to get locked up, but you got to go. So a lot of times, if I had to fold them up, I wouldn't even charge them with resistance. That just went with the game. Hey, you got caught. We'd be laughing and joking on the way down to the jail. I give them a pound at the, you know, everybody, COs and other officers that look at me crazy because I'm kicking with this guy and they give me a pound. So I'm like, thanks, and he going to jail. You know, it's because I treated him like a human being.
Well, we could have used you to help us fight Joe.
Well, mental illness is another story. So one of the things I want to say to the Facebook world is this: is that there are far more good officers than there are bad officers. We're here because there's a specific issue that we're just trying to address. Okay, so I don't want people to feel like through 31 years of law enforcement, for me, that it was all bad. It wasn't. I have met good people. I've worked around good people. The good people far outweighed those that were not. The good supervisors, the good leaders outweighed or outnumbered those that were not. But tonight is about addressing that elephant that's in the room, addressing some issues and trying to determine what avenues we can take to make this profession a better profession. Understand that all of the training in the world is not going to change a thing unless an individual wants to change. all of the training in the world for police officers. If every police officer was trained and was doing things the right way, we're still going to have this issue because the public needs to understand how they need to conduct themselves and how they need to, and what responsibility the public has in an encounter with police officers. It's not 100% the police officers. He or she has to control the situation. But a citizen can help control that situation as much as the police officer, as long as you're conducting yourself accordingly. And that accordingly is going to be different for every person. But all I want to say to the world is this. Every police officer that may be listening to this, be responsible. Every citizen that may be listening to this, be responsible. Be responsible to yourselves and be responsible to whoever you're in encounter with. And I promise you this, if that officer has good intentions, the encounter will be a successful encounter. Now, that means it can go 1,000 different ways. But the one way I don't want it to go is for a citizen to be killed needlessly, or an officer to be killed needlessly. I don't want hate and discontent amongst one another. We don't even know each other when we're dealing with people. So you don't hate me, you hate my profession. You hate what I represent. But why? So keep that in mind and just try to respect each other. You know, and I hold police officers to that higher standard. You got to throw out more respect than you receive. And when you don't get it, it's okay. That little cape that you wear, somebody tug on it, don't worry about it. At the end of the day, you do this job because it's what you chose to do. Not because of the money, not because somebody made you do it. You chose this profession. So you got to take the good with the bad.
Well, we end our segment on a positive note. Vito, I don't know how you gonna follow up on that one. Because that was a hell of a positive note. So I'm curious to see what's gonna be your positive note. But I'm normally the official timekeeper, and we are at that time where we need to close this thing out. And as always, we try to close on a positive note. So I'll go first. And mine is, we're 50 days from the election. And vote, vote, vote. And I keep talking about the leadership is so crucial to where we're going in this fight for justice. So your vote is going to determine who you put in a leadership position to represent your interest or our interest as a community or a society. So vote, vote, vote. Ask your people in your circle, are they registered? Are they going to vote? And those that keep saying, well, the election is going to be what it's going to be, they already predetermined. We can't take that position. We got to make every vote count. So that's my, and I don't know how positive it sounded in the end, but I would like to leave on that vote, on that note, vote, vote, vote.
If I have anything I want everybody to remember is respect. Respect other people's opinions, respect other people's situations, respect their differences. Shoot, my wife loves bubblegum ice cream. I can't stand it, but I respect. I don't throw it out when I see it in the freezer. I respect that's what she likes, so hey, that's it. Respect everybody, and that way, that'll make life a whole lot easier. And like Vito said, there's a lot of good. I mean, there's more bad, good police officers than there are bad, and I enjoyed being with my career. I had fun. I enjoyed it, even the hard times. I enjoyed it because it made me the person I am right now.
I'm gonna go next so Vito can try to close out with whatever he was gonna try to close out with. Because, like Sam said, that's gonna be hard to top. But couple things. Proverbs 13:20 says, "He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools will be destroyed." So, piggybacking off something Vito said about the people that he surrounded himself with while he was working, and good people flock the good people, bad people flock the bad people. So, the more good people you surround yourself with, the more good things or good outcomes you'll have in your life. And I'll piggyback also on what Sam said about voting, but be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. Don't vote on November 3rd. Vote before November 3rd. Because November 3rd is clearly set up to prevent as many people from voting as possible. So vote before then. Early vote. And only vote once.
Yes.
All right. Well, I will close this out with love. We should love each other as brothers. We're all human. God has designed us to love one another. I don't care what differences people have. If you love, we can conquer any differences and any issue. The trick is the love has to flow two ways. If you love your brother or you love your neighbor as your brother and vice versa, you have no issues. And let me say this. If a person needs a heart to live, or a liver to live, an organ to live, somebody dies and gives that organ is that organ. That organ isn't a black liver, a black heart, a white heart. It is what it is. And it goes into someone that may be totally different from the person that it came out of, but it works the same way. It saves that life. It gives someone the ability to live on in the death of someone else. If you can love like that, like an organ, then we can conquer these issues. But it's got to take everybody, not just the village. It's got to take every single one of us as human beings to love somebody because they are human and not hate someone because of the color of their skin or treat someone different because of the color of their skin. Because when you pull that back, we're all the same. I'm done.
Well, all right now. Okay. Well, we didn't get to any of the comments today, but I'm sure all the panels will probably go back and scroll through them and make some personal comments that if they so choose, or you can reach out to any of us on this Facebook feed and we'll respond accordingly. We'll try to hit some of the comments up in our Retired Voices of Reason space. We'll try to hit you up on that. But anyhow, until next week, we want to say we appreciate you for supporting us and what we're trying to do. And we look forward to next week, and hopefully we give you just as good of a conversation as we try to make it. We try to keep it 100. So, peace.
Appreciate y'all. Love you.